how do you see what are the biggest obstacles for not utilizing AI within PMO?
I would say that the biggest obstacles really. Do you want to ask that again?
Start that again.
There was background noise then.
Let's go.
Do you want to ask that again?
Yeah, so what are the biggest obstacles why people are not utilizing different AI tools within PMO?
I think there's a variety of reasons. Let's start off with the organization itself. In many cases, there is a prejudice against, people taking shortcuts or using unreliable data. So there's a little bit of a bias towards that, a little bit of a misunderstanding about what comes out of AI and not trusting people to be skeptical and they'll just take whatever the first thing is. And also, there's a perception that maybe this is a way to avoid hard work, which, it's just an attitude that'll change over time in the same way that attitudes towards Google search changed over time. The other part, though, is maybe a little bit down to security, where I've worked at organizations where you could access the ChatGPT page. You can go onto OpenAI and you can get onto ChatGPT, and you could see your previous searches on there. You could get your history on there, but you couldn't push anything onto it. It had a block on there, so you couldn't upload onto there. And I think that was probably a limited restriction because, if they really didn't want you to go on there at all, they just ban the site. You wouldn't be able to get to it through their network. And that's driven by wanting to protect company data and sensitive market information. Maybe as that restriction eases over time, as people make their arrangements with the providers, perhaps those kind of things will relax a little bit. And the other side of it is people just being a little bit ignorant about it. People will use tools like AI for a little bit of fun to begin with. That's probably the best way to get some exposure to it. You might go on it and ask a silly question. I went on ChatGPT the other day and I asked it in Lord of the Rings, why didn't they just use the big eagles to fly the ring to Mordor? That kind of dumb stuff. They're not seeing that actually this can tell you everything you need about a specific topic with a great level of intelligence if you give it the chance and if you give it the right background information, the right prompt. Also, I think a lot of people are using it when they do tiptoe in, they haven't mastered the prompts yet. So they're asking a dumb question, they're getting a dumb answer back and they think the tool's stupid. Well, you do a dumb search on Google search, you'll get a dumb answer. So it's not really any different. But that just comes from experience. And I think as organizations start to relax a little bit more and they realize this isn't a cheat, they get the right security balance in place. There needs to be a security balance. But when they get that into place, and then when they learn how to use the tool effectively, I think that'll turn around then.
I have one angle to that, and if we think about companies, how they've been evolving and doing transformation for hundreds of years, it's been there always. I think one main driver has always been productivity. And if you think about companies manufacturing products, all of the factories have been always driven by productivity. And AI has been utilized a lot, robotics, IoT, different kind of technologies we've been utilizing in production from the steam engine and even before the steam engine, So now kind of the interesting topic among C-level people in big enterprises is white-collar productivity. Because we've been very much focused on the productivity in the factories. And all of the easy kind of savings and efficiencies, like if you've seen the latest factories of Chinese car manufacturers, they are fully automated, everything. But if you think about the offices, the office organizations, and mainly like R&D and I people, PMO people, then it's kind of it will definitely happen because these organizations are led by number people, number heads, and they want to get a higher ROI on their office people. So AI is a really easy and handy tool for that. And that's why I think it's going to be quite fast transformation, because everybody wants to get efficiencies. And it's been very hard economic times in the world. So we are looking for all the time more and more efficiencies. And there was a McKinsey study actually that AI can help companies to get 30% savings, 40% more efficiencies, and 50% better decisions thanks to AI. So the potential is huge.
Yeah.
What do you think about that?
No, I completely agree. I completely agree. The challenge with productivity, though, is how do you measure it in an environment that isn't a production line, where you can't just say, well, we got this many cars off yesterday and we got 2 more off today, so therefore we'll be more productive than yesterday. When you're working in change and project, how do you measure that? It's an interesting question across the whole board, because we keep hearing things about how the public sector has received big increases in investment over the last year or so, but its productivity hasn't moved. So I wasn't sure exactly what that meant, and I thought, well, they don't have a production line, so how do you measure that? Funny enough, I asked AI, and he told me that you do it based on, you can look at, say, a hospital that's public owned, and you can see how many patients are getting processed through the system, how quickly, how effectively and efficiently you can get people treated and out of the bed, and then get the bed ready for the next person, and so on. So there are ways to do that which aren't always obvious. In any kind of environment, though, where it's not just a simple number of people going in through a door and out through a door, or getting an obviously better outcome, how do you do that in the project management space? And you can't say, well, we can deliver changes much faster now because we've got AI, because you could do a much faster change without the AI and have terrible outcomes because you've sped through it and you've not considered things properly. And usually, when people go that fast, they stop consulting stakeholders, and they take that shortcut and they pay for it later on. The question about how AI can help immediately is in the administrative work. So I've seen your tool can not only create a business case out of thin air from an idea, but it can also convert it into a readable, more human style writing. And then it can plot a project plan based off of that. It can create charters, it can create risks and start to populate risk logs and think of the project plan and so on. And it can do it in a matter of minutes. It would take a human project manager about maybe a few days, maybe a week, maybe longer, depending on the project, to do anything like that. That's the speed advantage. You still need the human to look at it and say, does this make sense in the real world? Are these timescales, acceptable? I did an experiment using ChatGPT to be a project manager a few months ago, and it came up with, it did a charter, and I had to get it to refine it twice to get it to where I was absolutely happy with it was covering what the project was trying to do. That took about 10 minutes. And then it created a plan a few minutes later, It just looked at the main milestones that I'd agreed in the charter and just expanded on that. And its timescales were extremely aggressive. though it was trying to fit in within the constraints that I'd given it, and I had to adjust it. Now, adjusting something like that is so much easier than like having to start from scratch. So you get past that blank page problem that usually people run into, and they look at a template and they hold their breath and think, where am I going to start? And usually, by the way, for anybody watching, you don't start on the first page. You start at the first place that you can start to complete. But
Yeah.
sorry, a little segue to the audience there. But I think that's the immediate thing you can overcome.
How do you think because we can see that there are some obstacles, but there are so big benefits that it's going to be breakthrough anyways. But how do you see this in, let's say, 5 years, 10 years time?
I went to a Gartner webinar that was talking about what's coming next down the road. And I can't remember the exact term off the top of my head, but basically it was, at the moment you've got very passive AI that sits there waiting for you to come and prompt it and tell it to do something. The next stage is going to be, it's proactive, it's not going to wait for prompt, it's going to be making decisions for itself, it's going to be working to its own timetable. And the belief that AI can't do the work whilst you sleep, that's going to change. I think it will be able to do the work during your sleep. I don't know what you'll be waking up to, but you'll certainly be getting somewhere. The question, though, is can it be lifted out of the admin area? And it's a funny thing because the perception of AI maybe as an admin tool is not too dissimilar to how many people see the PMO in the project management space as well, that it's an admin function when clearly it's not. The PMO can also work all the way up to the working with the C-suite and doing portfolio management and project prioritization within that space. AI can probably do that more reliably than humans because it won't have the human biases so long as it's got all the right information and the ability to make those decisions and knows how to make those decisions. It can at least come up with a recommendation. I think that is where it will go in the next 5 years, which then the question is this a threat or an opportunity? And that's the question that people have always struggled with when it comes to AI. It's not going to be, some terrible thing that's going to take over the world in the way that the sci-fi films do. It might be the thing that just takes away a big chunk of your job. And the question is going to be, well, what do you do next? I mean, there's that example, isn't there, that halfway through the 1980s, up until that point, every TV show and every film you saw where there was music, there was a musician involved in making that, or a number of musicians. And then computerized electronic music came in from that point, and at the end of that year that was introduced, 50% of the musicians who were working in TV and cinema were out of work. Maybe they went on to do better things. Yeah,
exactly. yeah.
But
we humans, we are creative, so we also can create new jobs.
Yeah, and the thing is, when you create something new, you have to usually destroy something on the way.
But if we go back, let's say, we had the dot-com boom, and then everybody were talking about that data is the new oil. And it was actually not very many companies who were really able to get the benefits out of the data, because it's very few companies who have the big data. And then it was blockchain. Everybody talked about the blockchain, that blockchain is the next internet. Never materialized. I don't know any good use cases about blockchain.
No, there aren't any that I'm aware of either.
Yeah, so how about AI? We haven't seen a lot of good use cases so far, because I guess most of the benefits that are there, they are invisible for big audiences, because AI is utilized like in production efficiencies and so forth and so forth. But I think what the ChatGPT made was that it became visible because it was kind of a consumer-driven thing. so anybody in the world can utilize it. And now Chinese are creating even kind of lower barrier solutions for people. So it's going to be a big breakthrough, but it's very difficult yet to forecast really how it's going to change the world. Because if we take like internet, it in a way it changed everything, but on the other hand it didn't change anything. We're still human beings, we go shopping. It was about to cut the middleman, but we still go to supermarket to buy food, and we still, some of us read books. So it didn't kill any media actually.
I have to disagree. I think internet did change an awful lot about humans, and you can see this from the connection in, say, and it's a disturbing connection in how people's levels of anxiety, especially children, and the harm they're doing to themselves has increased exponentially from the point where the internet became available on mobile devices. And you see that horrible curve going up, and that could be just the mobile device, it could be social media, but at the heart of that is internet. That's not to say that there aren't huge benefits as well, but I think the internet has changed the human condition and its understanding of the world around us in a way that, how many newspapers would you have had to read to just get a sample of the amount of information we're exposed to now at just a brief browse, and how that's changing our thinking, our behaviours, our attitudes, and indirectly perhaps our body chemistry as a result.
Yep.
But coming back to blockchain, funny enough, AI had been ticking along quietly before that big explosion of ChatGPT. Was it 3.5 was the one that caught headlines? I mean, that was when it got good. Blockchain might have just been announced too prematurely. It might still have its case somewhere, possibly in banking or financial transactions or legal or something like that. And the metaverse, also prematurely announced, that could spring up at some point in a few years. And it's like, well, it's now metaverse 3.5, it's ready, and we'll all be amazed and impressed. So I wouldn't say those things have got away entirely. It's just, the jury's out. We're still waiting on the decision whether these things are going to be as beneficial to us as we'd hoped. Regarding AI and project management, I think we can say the jury's a lot closer to say that this is a benefit to the profession. The question is its benefit to the professional going to be, is that going to be an opportunity or a threat? That question hasn't. Yes, yes, I agree. Now, the good thing though, for the last year or two, I've been hearing a lot of people who are thought leaders in the PMO space talking about being value-driven PMOs. And I was talking to Americo Pinto about this last year, and he was laughing because he was saying, it's always been value-driven. It should have always been value-driven. We weren't shouting about it. We were just quietly delivering the value. And that makes sense. But I think there is going to be greater need now for the individuals working, the professionals working in that space, to present their value loud and clear. As the technology is coming in, knowing that the technology is going to take some parts of their jobs away, to show the value of the parts that remain, because in the end, the technology doesn't have to replace 100% of what the person does. It only has to replace enough for a cost-focused decision maker to ask, well, it does 80% of what that person does. How hard is it to replace the other 20%? Can we live without that other 20%? And if they're paying a fraction of the amount to get 80% of the individual, I think a lot of companies are going to do that. I think that's going to be the next big challenge.
Yeah, I fully agree.
Yeah. But, like the musicians of the 1980s, maybe PMOs will find a better way to work. Maybe they'll find other things to do. There is going to be a huge amount of change. The predictions are that we're going to need millions more project managers in years to come. So maybe these PMOs who've had all this experience working alongside project managers, BAs, QAs, whatever, they can step into those kind of roles where they say, well, you know what, I understand control and the balance of speed and control more than most people in this profession. So I'm going to step up and I'm going to be an exceptional project manager now, or a program manager, or portfolio manager, until the technology comes along and takes away that job as well. But there's no point in crying about what used to be. There's no point in worrying about what, the change is. The change is inevitable. So whether you like it or not, you have to embrace it.
Fully agreed, yeah.
There you go. That's as upbeat as I can be about a downbeat topic.